that where the woman, the wife, I think, of the wife who survived her husband, fought the invaders in that fort. She was a real warrior herself.
Jhansi Rani.
Yes, was it?
Jhansi Rani.
Ah,
she's a Maharashtra.
I'd forgotten. Yeah. Yes, but impressive, wonderful, and on another occasion, I'm just sure this is at different times. Another occasion, again, we were taken and given afternoon tea in the boardroom of the bank. I can remember a long table, and we're all the bank manager, who must have known about Barber. Whether he's a Barber lover, I don't know. All I know is that that was a sort of an outing for us. Whereas, as far as I was concerned, and I don't want to be a virtue, I'm just saying personally in my own case, I would have been quite happy staying at Meherabad. The atmosphere of Meherabad was, with or without Barber, his presence was so strong that one was just happy to be there, sort of just being there, whether one was active or otherwise. There's somebody coming. Turn it off.
On the subject of entertainment, what about Barber's?
Turn it off.
What about the ping pong competition?
Turn it off, Diana. The next day, Barber said that he would take us down the hill to a building which is called Mundley Hall. It means a place. Mundley again, refers to the disciples, the ones that have given their life to Barber, and it's a place where they can gather with him. Anyway, we go down there, and Barber said that this is unusual for him, but that every so often he conducts prayers with some of his followers, disciples, and whether we are or not, I don't know. But but anyway, we gathered with him, and again, I'm sorry, I can't remember the whole sequence, but I do remember Barber was in white. He had a white coat and the white sadra, and I remember him facing a big painting of him, of Barber, which is still there at Meherabad, and the various disciples, Erich, an English disciple, Dr. Donkin, various ones.
All the doors and windows were closed.
That's right. They were all closed. We were enclosed with Barber, and Barber stood in front of this painting, and the various disciples gave a prayer, in a Christian prayer, a Hindu or a Vedanta, Hindu, Zoroastrian, and Muslim, and then at the end, and during it, what I do remember was Barber washing his hands. Now, he may have washed his face, I don't remember that, but he washed his face, and I remember Vishnu had a towel over his arm and a basin with the water. And there are certain certain scenes with Baba that remain indelibly in one's mind. And I remember Baba there, and then I don't think at the end, I think it was only at the end there was also the prayer of repentance was recited, and Baba then went down and bowed down and touched his head
To his own?
of himself.
Oh.
Yeah, himself. I don't think he did that, but he may have with the other prayers. Anyway, that was another memorable day. And again, there were certain things that one remembers, walking down with Baba, and Baba making sure that the older ones, that he wasn't moving too quickly for them. And all I can say is that it was another wonderful time just to be with him in whatever he was doing. Now I wish I could remember even more, but I can relive being there in that hall with him.
Any other memories of the same 54?
Yes, all right. So, okay, there comes a time now. With those other days, they were certain special days. But otherwise, what happened was that Baba would come and give us a discourse, and talk about love, talk about the spiritual path, the stages of the spiritual path, and so forth. And of course, I, being very conscientious and intent on I was serious about Baba, so I used to write everything down, which meant that, of course, with Baba dictating, there were many occasions when I would watch Baba dictating, and then Erich would interpret, and I would write down. But there would be stages in between, pauses with Baba, and I would be able to look at Baba. But otherwise, now I wish I had just looked at Baba, because they were also copied down by others. So I could have saved my time and been with Baba. Now perhaps because of that, because I was so intent on writing down what Baba said, I don't know, but all of a sudden, in the midst of one of these occasions when we were gathered there with Baba, we would be all seated on chairs in that room, that west room. Baba would be at a little distance from us, 10, 12 feet away. And all of a sudden, Baba looked at myself and John Ballantyne, the other young Australian, and I can remember him pointing like this to us and said, "These two lads." He referred to us as lads. I was always either a lad, or I became, later on, he also referred to me as Billy Boy. Which sort of...
So he thought you were a child.
He recognised that I was very much a beginner in this business, very much. Anyway, he pointed to us and said, "These two lads have a love for truth." Then he directed that we were to sit for 7 nights. We were to sit for half an hour in his tomb at midnight, and that we were to sit still, not move, have our eyes open, and inwardly take his name. So I said, "Yes, Baba," as Yes, whatever Barbara had given me, I would have said yes. And so at that night, now he did say that at the conclusion of the seven nights, we might get a glimpse of God. That I can only say, in retrospect, that didn't mean anything to me. I was simply intent on doing what Barbara asked me to do. A glimpse of God didn't actually register or mean anything to me, because it wasn't something that was paramount in my mind. What was important to me was doing what he asked of him, asked of us, asked of me. And so the first night, Francis took the two of us. Now, Meherabad at night, particularly, and Meherabad in general, was very deserted then. There were no people wandering around. There were no animals. There were no dogs. There was no light. The light was lanterns. Or pressure lamps, but it wasn't. There was no electricity. There were no cars then, and no trains. There were trains, but not at that time. Not frequent, not nearly as frequent as they are now. And so it was absolutely still, dark, and silent. And okay, Francis took us down. The two of us walked in.